You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Comelec Commissioner George Garcia. Commissioner Garcia, welcome back to The Source. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Good morning po, Ma'am Pinky, and good morning to all the televiewers and the listeners of the program.
Okay, so is it all systems go for the proclamation of the 12 senators later this afternoon at 4 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. Actually po, yesterday we determined first whether or not the results of Lanao del Sur will affect the ranking of the senatorial candidates, and at the same time whether it will materially affect din po yung number 12 and 13. And after much calculation, computation, we determined that indeed the results of Lanao del Sur will no longer affect materially or even the ranking of the winning senatorial candidates, as well as the number 12 and 13, yung pong kanilang ranking. And so we proceeded with the proclamation today of the winning 12 senatorial candidates po.
I was actually looking at that, Commissioner, number 12 and 13, ano? Medyo malaki din po kasi talaga yung gap between Ejercito and I believe, Estrada and Binay.
Senator Jinggoy po. Senator Jinggoy and Vice President Binay po.
Opo, malaki yung kanilang gap, so talagang hindi na po maa-affect yan. Have any VIP sent their confirmation for today's event?
As of kanina lang po, mga 1 hour ago, wala pa kaming natatanggap na confirmation. But definitely po, more or less, hopefully, from the President, Vice President, the Chief Justice, the Senate President, and the Speaker, hopefully po, ay makapag-confirm sila na dadalo sila mamayang hapon.
And the party list winners, I understand that the planned proclamation, partial proclamation on Thursday, I read that this has been postponed. Is this correct, sir?
You are correct, ma'am. The Supervisory Committee of the National Board of Canvassers, after much determination and computation, had said, based sa kanilang recommendation po, that it will materially affect the result of the party list, especially yung ranking. Technically po, we have to understand na yung lahat na nakikita ng mga kababayan natin, ng mga party list, yung kanilang mga boto, sa ating pong transparency server from the PPCRV, NAMFREL, and even yung mga ibang networks, lahat po yun kasi ay unofficial. As far as the Comelec is concerned, kahit alam namin na yun ang boto, kahit alam namin na dapat ito yung mabibigay na credit sa party list, we should refrain from doing that because we can only rely on what is officially transmitted to us or sent to us via manually or physical transmission of the COC. So hindi po namin magagawa just to rely on the transparency server. That's why, because 685,000 po ang votes ng buong Lanao del Sur, although hindi naman po lahat nakaboto doon, but that will definitely affect the ranking, including how many seats will be given to a certain party list.
I see. But how many party lists are going to be proclaimed? Has that been determined? I mean, the seats are, I believe, 63?
Yes, ma'am. 63 po. And 63 po based sa decision ng Supreme Court sa Banat versus Comelec. But at the same time, kung sino yung entitled sa 2 seats, sino yung entitled sa 1 seat lang. But of course, there is always one party list that will get 3 seats. Whoever is the party list that will be ranking number 1, kahit ano yung votes na nakuha niya, ma'am, will always get 3 seats. Now, who will get 2 seats and who will get only 1 seat, that will be determined by the Commission and Bank, simply because, ma'am, there are several petitions right now being filed before the Commission election on how we should compute who should get 2 seats and who should be getting only 1 seat.
Well, why is that happening? Isn't there a formula, Commissioner?
Some are saying we should abandon the formula. Some are saying that this should be the right formula. Some are saying that the computation originally was wrong. But we have to understand that there is a Supreme Court decision, and we, the Comelec, will always have to follow and abide by the Supreme Court decision, unless it's the Supreme Court that will reverse itself or will change the formula or computation. Perhaps, ma'am, perhaps it's high time later when there is a new Congress that we should change or modify or amend the party list law and include how do we really compute who should be entitled to this or who should be entitled to that.
But that's what I'm confused about hearing this from you now. If there is a Supreme Court decision on this, on the formula to be used on the winning party list groups, why is it being questioned? On what basis are they questioning this formula?
There are those who are saying, ma'am, that there is a loophole in the decision of the Supreme Court and the loophole in Republic Act 7941. I'm going to cite you an example.
Go ahead,
How do
sir.
you compute how do you compute the one that is entitled to 2 seats? If, for example, your party list, Ma'am Pinky, is able to get 3.75% of the total votes cast for the party list, automatically you have 1 seat already. Question: are you entitled to additional seat? Well, now that will be now the question. The question is, if you are already given 1 seat because of your 2% of the 3.75, then you still have 1.75% left. And what if there are other party lists naman below the 2% threshold na ang votes ang percentage halimbawa 1.98, 1.99, wala lang 2%. So yung bang 1.75 mo na natitira should now that be ranked below the 1.99 or 1.98, or it should be ranked higher than 1.99 or 1.98 simply because your party list was able to get 2% already. So of course, those who got more than 2% are now saying, no, we should be ranked ahead of those who got less than 2%. Those who got less than 2%, or even if our remaining percentage is smaller, should be ranked below us. Sabi naman yung mga nasa baba, no. Alam, it's so unfair. 1% ka na lang eh. Kung natitira mo, 1.75. Kami, 1.99, 1.98. So dapat nasa taas naman kami, si ma'am. That is the loophole. According to them, that is the gray area of which the Comelec's discretion will now have to come in.
Yeah, but how was it implemented during the last party list elections? Yung hubang, let's say, as you mentioned a while ago, kasi I understand the argument of various groups, ano po, kung 3.75 ka, 2% ang nakuha mo, may isa ka ng upuan, ano? Pero may 1.75 ka pa. Syempre, pag sasabihin nila, I was over 2%, and hence that over 2% should give me actually 2 seats. Besides, 1.75 is almost 2%. And then the 1.98, hindi naman siya nakaabot sa threshold ng 2%. Pero sasabihin naman nila, but I'm 0.02% away from the 2%. I mean, who wins here?
Yes, ma'am. Basta ma'am ganito po. In the meantime, I cannot tell you how the Comelec was able to compute in the past because siyempre I'm not yet a member of the commission. Pero the best course of action, in the meantime, this is just my personal opinion. I do not want to preempt the action of the NBank. We have to stick to whatever is our computation in the past. That is just to be consistent. That we have to stick kung paano kami nag-compute in the past, because definitely yung computation before ay consistent sa Supreme Court decision. And of course, surely madami nagtaas sa Supreme Court nung naging computation ng Comelec. Bakit hindi nag-reverse ang Supreme Court? Bakit hindi niya na-reverse ang Comelec? So perhaps tama ang Comelec sa computation niya. Until nga, unless this time, when we make our own computation based on the precedent, then they can go now to the Supreme Court and question our decision.
But that sounds logical, Commissioner, hindi ho ba? You will follow what was the formula used in the past. Hence, until there is a decision by the Supreme Court on Comelec, you did not compute this right. But pending no other decision from the Supreme Court, what was followed in the past, as long as it adheres to the Supreme Court decision, that must stay for now. But Commissioner, I just need to take a very short break. We will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Comelec Commissioner George Garcia. So, Commissioner, will you be able, are you at liberty to tell us what formula will be used o hindi pa po pwede?
Not at this point, ma'am, because definitely yung mga nag-file ng mga petition, we still have to hear their arguments. We have to find out ano yung pinagbabasihan ng arguments nila. Baka naman po merong iba. Some are even citing dissenting opinions of certain justices of the Supreme Court who dissented in the decision of, in the case of Banat versus Comelec. Sinasabi na it's high time that we abandon that doctrinal pronouncement and we now adopt the dissenting opinion because of the changing time. So we will have to hear.
Commissioner, how can you adopt a dissenting opinion if there was a decision by the Supreme Court? Obviously, in many cases, di ba, may mga dissenting opinion naman talaga. But what rules is yung naging decision nila with finality, kumbaga. Until that is reversed, that is the formula that will be used.
Yes, ma'am, precisely. That is the point, because the rule of law dictates that the commission election
I mean,
will always have to follow
Yeah.
the decision of the Comelec, of the Supreme Court, whether the Supreme Court is
Right.
so divided or what, but that is the pronouncement of the Supreme Court until and unless the Supreme Court will be the one to reverse itself. That is the rule of law.
yeah,
And
you-
the decision of the Supreme Court forms part of the law of the land.
exactly. And you can only use a dissenting opinion if you wish to, if you file a motion for reconsideration, but not to appeal that to the Comelec and use that as basis, right?
Yes, ma'am. Perhaps even the Supreme Court even is actually saying that the reason why in the past, ma'am, the reason why the Supreme Court is offering certain formula on how to compute the threshold is because sinasabi ng Supreme Court, wala kasi sa law. Siguro nga po, pakiusap na rin
That's
po
why
natin
you're
sa ating
saying-
darating na Kongreso. Isama na po sa law kasi po
Linawin.
the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is
Opo.
being forced to make the computation.
Yeah.
In fact, ma'am, the Supreme Court by itself reversed itself on the computation. Yung tinatawag na panganiban formula nung una at yung pangalawa naman yung Carpio formula. Nung una, ma'am, hindi pinapupunuan yung lahat ng allocated seats for the party list. Dati po mga 30 lang po yung party list seats natin na allocated. Sabi niya hanggang doon lang po. Dito naman po sa Carpio formula na inadapt ng Supreme Court, dapat po punuan yung buong 63 seats. So at least the Supreme Court by itself reversed itself.
Yeah. It basically also at some point in time, the interpretation or the decision rather changes. All right, let me just go to this very quickly, Commissioner. I was speaking to Senator Pimentel yesterday, and he tweeted this. No, he said we denounced the massive vote buying which happened on election day. I just want to find out what is the Comelec doing in terms of these allegations of vote buying, and we're talking about, as he mentioned, sabi niya may papel, may balota, tapos may pera daw. Ang laman pa nga daw, 1,540 pesos.
Yes, ma'am. He reported that to me. The good senator reported that to me on election day. And I said to him, sir, pakibigay niyo yung exact location, etc. So far, we received more than 1,000 complaints for vote buying dun sa amin pong kontra bigay. Akala po siguro, ma'am, ng mga ibang kandidato, kahit nanalo na sila, na hindi namin sila hahabulin. Tandaan niyo po ito, ma'am, sa inyong programa. Hahabulin po namin ang lahat ng mga may issue ng vote buying, lahat na may reklamo sa amin. Magbisi lang po kami dito sa proclamation. But definitely, remember po, yung isang vote buying case will always have two cases. Number one, either an election offense, 1 to 6 years imprisonment, or number two, disqualification cases. So meaning to say, especially if there is a case pending before us, before the election on disqualification, we can always remove them. Kaya po namin kayong tanggalin. Kahit na governor kayo, vice governor, mayor, tatanggalin po namin kayo simply because you violated the election law. So it's not only because naging busy kami, ma'am, hindi na namin aasikasuhin yan. Yung lahat ng mga cases na meron sa amin ngayon, immediately after these proclamations and canvassing, we will go after these vote buyers.
At dahil sinabi niyo po yan, Commissioner Garcia, babalikan ko din po kayo para sa update. After the proclamation, you said about 1,000, may mga 1,000 reklamo na natanggap ang Comelec. In the meantime, Comelec Commissioner George Garcia, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.